The advocacy community in Arkansas is a community that is working diligently for change in our state.
Our advocacy organizations in Arkansas are very strong, are competent, have a great capacity, have the true heart and desire to help Arkansans, and are there to provide a diverse range of guidance and support for our citizens.
They work collaboratively, they work in coalition, and they are working for all those issues that will ensure that poverty reduction occurs in our state.
You know, the number of people engaged in Arkansas from a community standpoint is so much more than it once was, and it was actually came a big shift in our work in the early 90s because we had focused on advocacy and kind of more from a policy lens through the 70s and 80s, and became frustrated that it was difficult to make progress, and came to the conclusion that really there's just, you know, it's not that people in Arkansas don't know what the right thing, or the leaders in it know what the right thing was. There weren't enough people at the community level pushing. The mission of the panel is to expand social justice in Arkansas. Primary strategy is organizing communities, particularly low-income communities, rural communities, and people of color, to be more involved in the political system on issues that they care about. We've changed our focus and began expanding, and then lots of other groups have come along. Our CA has been a huge partner working on education and rural development. You know, Advocates for Children and Families is much bigger than they used to be. The environmental community in Arkansas has swelled. The faith and communities engaged more on policy. So I think you've seen the kind of the set of players and the number of communities involved really expand, and people who never thought that they could play a role in the process find really powerful voices.
You know, in general, I feel like the rural population has been pretty much unengaged in advocacy as a whole for a long time. And the Rural Community Alliance is, we're a statewide organization, but we're located in low-wealth rural communities, and our mission is basically helping those communities, schools, families, students, survive and thrive, we call it. In about 2000, 2003, they got involved in the education issues that were sort of gripping the state, and it really impacted them in a personal way.
Well, when I think about community organizing and the role that a particular entity or place or people play into that, in rural communities is very important to be able to help support the efforts of the people, the grassroots people, because of the fact that we do not have a lot of funding, we do not have a lot of buildings, we do not have a lot of resources that larger cities and communities have. So everything that gets done, just like any good idea, it starts with a person or a group of people.
We have a small staff and a large network of volunteers in our 52 chapters. Each one's led by a chapter leader. So we just kind of work in sort of a spider web fashion and getting the information and the materials out to them, and then they organize at the local level.
I think it's important because it's not them and us, we're becoming we.
Yes.
And that's what needs to happen in our community.
You know, people have the right to determine what's best for their lives, their family, their community. So we kind of start from that premise of trying to help people kind of claim their own rightful place. Another just practical reason is they're far better at it than anyone else. And so we found that oftentimes the solutions that we dream up in Little Rock don't work in Pocahontas or in Texarkana or wherever, and that really having the people from those communities involved helps make better decisions.
The mid-2000s, especially just before the recession, Arkansas had the largest, fastest growing Latino population in the country per capita. And as people moved in, it's time that in this emerging population we give a voice.
Arkansas United Community Coalition exists to support immigrants in organizing and in coalition building, really trying to emphasize that immigrants themselves have a role to play in helping our communities achieve their potential. AUCC is very privileged to work with a coalition now of over 35 organizations across the state of Arkansas that work with immigrants, being based in our 6 target communities of Springdale, Rogers, Fort Smith, Little Rock, DeQueen, and Jonesboro, Arkansas. These organizations range from associations of Latinos or other immigrant groups to actual organizations that are trying to provide services to immigrants.
It's simple to say, well, people need a voice, but AUCC has set about trying to take people where they're at in their communities and give them the tools necessary to be able to become change agents in their community. So we work with low-income immigrants especially. The faith community is a very natural ally for whether it's children and families issues related to the immigrant community, whether it's the well-being of the communities that we live in.
We're also at an exciting period here in Arkansas where immigrants themselves are starting to thirst beyond just being recipients and beneficiaries of services, but actually to do something proactive. They just need some guidance and some support, but they're there and they're willing to help.
Good advocacy really depends on the extent to which that we can really put children and families first in all the decisions that we make. Far too often that does not happen. And so that means, of course, that not only do we have to educate policymakers, but we have to educate citizens as well, because I think it's pretty clear that for a lot of legislators, if they get even like 3 to 5 people from their legislative districts calling them, all of a sudden that's a flood of phone calls.
Well, the Community Foundation, being statewide, our primary focus is building a well-rounded, healthy, vibrant community and not just tackling it from one issue. And over the years we had done it in lots of different ways, basically by trying to build endowed grant-making assets in the community. But we really didn't have any parameters or structure through which to help communities move down a path of positive progress. So Aspire Arkansas was an attempt to do that, to say, if we had the perfect community, what would it look like? For Arkansas communities, we tried to put data, indicators under those, and we tried to balance that with it being appropriate and meaty enough to really give a good picture of each community. Now they're looking at the information and saying, okay, if this is our goal, if we really want to change this part about our community, how can we invest the limited dollars that we have in the organizations that are doing the best work to make that change? And so we have seen just in really less than a year, the conversations have become more strategic and really thinking long term rather than just what's next, what's for tomorrow.